Welcome back to another episode of Road to William. It's your host, Will, and I'm doing a movie recap on John Q. It was filmed in 2002, and it's loosely based off of a true story, and we're going to dive into that. Um, but yes, please leave in the comments some of your thoughts on the film. What were your favorite parts of it? Denzel Washington has had a lot of films that are classics, and he's still acting to this day and directing and things like that. So let me know your favorite Denzel Washington film and which one should I review next. Let me know in the comments. But yeah, so oh yeah, make sure y'all like, comment, subscribe. Keep this channel up and going. The more you like this video, uh YouTube pushes what people like, make more of it. It makes me make more of it. So when you like it, it's not just the algorithm, it's really for me as well to know what y'all like and don't like. So I've looked over my videos and I'm like, I get the message. But yeah, so thanks for tuning in and liking the videos in the past. But yeah, go ahead, like this video and share the video with somebody if you think. Share this video with someone you think might enjoy it. So I could learn from it. So John Q, rewatching it was really fun. I knew it was gonna rewatching it was I knew it was gonna be a lot of action and some memorable moments. But it's always nice to look back and see what I watched growing up and how to interpret it now as an adult years later. First. So when I was watching this film, I realized like, oh, it's definitely about bringing more awareness to healthcare issues that people have here in America, in the US, sometimes that people have in the US. It to me, it also showed the different people that were held hostage in the hospital. Let me get this in. So the people that were in the hospital kind of they represented people here in the US, people all over the world. Like they're relatable. You probably know someone like them. You probably dealt with situations that they have or know somebody who has. Um, so the story is about John Quincy. For the people who don't know, we're gonna recap it quick and then we're gonna dive into some things in the film. So John Q and his family, are hyping up this moment. And Denise, played by Kimberly Elise, also another GOAT in the game, we already know, played the wife of John and the mother of Michael. They called him Mike. And Mike played baseball and his heart gave out. And part of that brought I think they said the director, the producer who had a daughter who had a deficit, and it was partially dedicated to her. So at the end, when you see Sasha, it's the daughter of the director. So I thought that was um a great way to dedicate that to bring awareness um to people who have heart deficits. They talked about abuse. They talked about abuse of power, the slowness of the process. It showed like the power that everyone has and what they could do. But yeah, Denise and John brought their son and Mike to the hospital because his heart gave out when he was on the field. And the administration, played by Anne Hedge, her character was Rebecca Payne. And I saw a lot of similarities with Straw as I was rewatching this. When I was watching Straw, I was like, oh yeah, this definitely reminds me of John Q. Uh, a little bit of set it off, the urgency of needing something to provide. But yeah, so they bring them in, and the doctors, the nurses, they all do the best they can, and they can revive them. They revived them, and they're looking to replace his heart. He needed a new heart. This story connected with me too because I was in a similar position with my mother, and witnessed her having cardiac arrest, and she was able to be revived as well. So it's always glory to God for that. And so this movie, anytime someone brings it up like a cardiac arrest, but this specifically kind of really brought tears to my eyes just rewatching it. Um, but that's what you want in films. You kind of want to connect. You want to make sure that story connects somehow to the audience. Now, it doesn't have to be direct the same thing, but it's important when telling a story to help resonate, to make it true, to make it more than just a script. It's bringing like true stories to life. But yeah, let me know one of y'all favorite parts of the clip. One of my favorite scenes, I don't know. There's a lot of favorite scenes. I think it was the phone. The phone was interesting. Um, and I also found it interesting how media plays a part, how the community plays a part. The late Ray Liotta, uh, he played Chief Gus Monroe. The chief, uh, where is it? Whoa, they got the updated photo. You feel me? I'm like, where is he at? He's like one of the main guys. I don't know. Help, like, bro. Yeah, Lieutenant Frank Grimes. They got him at the bottom. Um, it's 50 Cent at the bottom. What's going on? Okay. Yeah, the director, Nick, is with 50 Cent on here for some reason, but and Rotten Tomatoes gave it a 1.5 star. We'll get into that. But at the end, when his son Mike was watching him drive off in the cop car, uh, he put up they did their thing again. What they did with each other, show each other that they love one another. They put the arms up, the arms down, and they would do it together. But this time, he did it by himself, and I thought that was a dope shot, dope moment. Um, Even though it was intense moments, it was still some funny scenes, like when they're freeing them, and but every time he freed them, it just felt good. Like it's almost they rehospitalized them, gave them what they need, and let them free because before all that, everybody was waiting and nobody was getting seen. It was loud, and I think this film showed like John Q was you know the metaphor of like change. It's abrupt. There's no warning, you know. And in that moment of a change, who are you? What do you do? Um, the media being attacked and for showing them trying to take out. See, the problem wasn't trying to take him out, the, when no one was watching, but it was the fact that the world saw it happen is what made them get exposed to the truth. And I think when they had everybody on one side, like you had the hostages, you had John Q in the hospital. That's one side of it. Then you got uh, Rebecca Payne, you got the chief, you got the lieutenant on the other side of it, and then you got the media. They're kind of in the middle. They're not sitting on the same side as the lieutenants, but they're not inside either. Um, Not yet. Uh, but they have a closer edge than they think than the lieutenants. Um, and that's what helped save him. And I don't know if y'all noticed this too, but uh, what was it, Tuck Lampley? He was the TV anchor, and I remember John Q coming up to him, saying, "Hey, is there a way you can, bring this story of change?" When he's trying to bring out, raise funds to help. If he had to get like $20,000 to help get a new heart, and he had to be on this list. And Tuck had an assistant, and he was a younger guy, and that kind of showed me like the passing the baton off to the younger generation. Even back then, he was young, he was into technology, he knew how to do all sorts of things with this new tech. Like he was stoked about it. And Tuck was that person who was still, he wasn't young, but he wasn't old yet. He was in that middle age realm of like, well, the young people gonna know something. Even though it's not technically the right way, it did save John Q's life in this film, which I think it goes to show media gets a lot of bad slack, but there's also good to it. And if we push more of the good, we could push out a lot of the bad. But this film highlighted a lot of deep-rooted issues that, you know, gets pushed away. But now that we're in the forefront of fighting for our rights, our freedom, I think this is a good film to watch to help reignite that juice. It reminds you that your community, the people around you are the community, and that in that moment the hospital was that community. They didn't stop running. They didn't say, "Hey, no, everyone just sit tight until I get my son and his demands." It was like, "No, let's the doctors still do their thing, like because I would want somebody to do that for me." And I think it's just a good film to circle back on. Go ahead, do that. But yeah, so there are some articles. One was by the Hollywood Times. I'm gonna share my screen with you. Hold on a second. So the Hollywood Reporter, it's a Hollywood flashback when Denzel fired back at the healthcare system on screen. The December shooting of United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson took John Q to the next level, says the movie's producers. Mark Berg of this film about a man who holds an ER hostage. 2 decades ago, Denzel Washington scored as a desperate man resorting to crime and frustration over the U.S. healthcare system. Director Nick Cassavetes' 2002 thriller John Q centers on John Quincy Archibald, A father who takes a hospital emergency room hostage when he's unable to pay for his young son's heart transplant. The screenplay from TV writer James Kearns has been set up at Columbia years earlier with the hope that Dustin Hoffman would star. It never got made, and Kearns bought the script back. John Q gained a champion in New Line exec Michael DeLuca and got off life support once Washington signed on in 2000. Co-stars Robert Duvall, James Woods, and Anne Heche soon joined. Casting director Matthew Berry recalls Kimberly Lee's beating out strong competition to play the title character's wife, Denise. I remember Viola Davis auditioned for that role, and my note on her was, she's not ready yet. There's one I missed. Berry tells The Hollywood Reporter with a laugh. As a heart surgeon, Woods took pointers from a pre-fame Mehmet Oz, the project's consultant whose hands can be seen performing the heart surgery. John Q was released on February 15, 2002. Critics were unimpressed, but the audience response was much healthier as the movie made $102 million worldwide. They're like, that's $179 million today. The hell? John Q received renewed attention after United Healthcare CEO Brian Thompson was shot and killed December 4th. When I heard about what happened in New York, the first thing that went through my head was, oh my God, this guy took from John Q to the next level, says producer Mark Berg. While proud of his film, he adds, it's sad that it's still relevant. Made by Jeffrey Kluger. This is made by Jeffrey Kluger, March 11th, 2002, 12 a.m. Eastern. Okay, so this is called John Q. How Real Is This Horror Story? As a rule, it's not a good idea to pick up a gun, take over the emergency room of a hospital, and threaten to kill your family's cardiac surgeon. But that's what Denzel Washington's character does in this film, John Q. When his son is denied the heart transplant he needs to survive. And if box office reaction is any indication, plenty of frustrated healthcare consumers have at least fantasized about doing the same thing. John Q, released in late February, hit #1 in the first week and stayed near the top. But does HMO hell really get this bad? The good news is that most of us will never find ourselves in quite the medical crisis the John Q family does. In the movie, which was written in 1993 during the Clinton healthcare reform battle, the parents are told that a heart transplant costs $250,000, that their insurance doesn't cover it, and that they're required to post a $75,000 deposit or their sick son will be sent packing. While it's true that hospitals expect to be reimbursed for services provided to even the neediest and most grievously ill patients, it's not true that they handle things in so mercenary a manner. That's Hollywood, says Ann Pash, spokeswoman for the United Network for Organ Sharing. The fact is, there are a lot of things that would prevent that from happening in the real world. First of all, with 2,200 heart transplants performed in the U.S. each year, the procedure is no longer considered experimental. Most policies today cover it. More important, those patients whose policies place restrictions on their transplant coverage and those who have no insurance are all not simply turned away. Even prisoners are entitled. In January, a 31-year-old felon serving time in a California prison received a heart transplant that it estimated could cost the state's taxpayers some $400,000, if not more. Transplant hospitals keep on staff financial advisors who work with insurance companies, federal and state governments, and even private foundations, which often provide funds for poor patients, especially children. Transplantation hospitals must and do have this in place, especially. Okay. The problem is that the other pricey medical procedures that are also matters of life and death do not come with the same financial safeguards. And like the family in John Q, millions of Americans live in a sort of insurance netherworld, too poor for the procedure they need, but not so poor that they can rely on the government to step in and pay. There are about 84 million Americans who are covered by either Medicaid or Medicare, says Christina Newman of the Kaiser Family Foundation. But there are about 40 million uninsured people who are not quite old enough or poor enough to qualify. If they have a serious accident, they really get they really up a creek. Perhaps an additional 10 million to 15 million people have some coverage, but not enough, belonging to plans that offer not much more than the basics for them. For them, a little insurance can be almost as bad as none at all. Sometimes we tell people simply to stop working and spend all their money, says Oz, the director of the Cardiovascular Assist Device Program at Columbia University's College of Physicians and Surgeons in New York City, and a technical advisor for John Q. Then at least qualify for Medicaid. For the majority of even minimally insured people, things will never come to that. Coverage caps, which in John Q limit the family's reimbursement to just $20,000, do exist, but they're typically lifetime maximums rather than annual caps, and the majority of them are $1 million or more. Such a payout is usually more than adequate, though a catastrophic injury like paralysis can blow through the whole reserve in just a few years. Similarly, surreptitious policy switching, which in John Q causes the family's coverage to shrink as the lead characters' work hours are cut. But it's not as much of a danger as the movie would suggest. This was made in February 18, 2002 by Benedict Carey, John Q's Public Warning. As hundreds of thousands of Americans watched this weekend as a desperate father held a hospital emergency room at gunpoint and demanded a heart transplant for his dying son. Fortunately for everyone, it all happened in a movie. John Q, which opened Friday, the movie stars Denzel Washington as John Q. Archibald, an Illinois factory worker who resorts to hostage taking after learning that the hospital won't even request an organ for his son without sufficient insurance coverage, which he doesn't have. In his scramble to save his son, Archibald runs into one unbending bureaucrat after another. The hospital won't help him raise funds. The factory is trying to save money and has downgraded his insurance to an HMO policy that pays only a fraction of the operation's cost. Even Medicaid, the government assistance program for the poor, turns away the Archibald's because their meager income is too high to qualify for the program. As his son's heart winds down, tick by tick, John Q sells off his possessions and becomes increasingly frantic. Though medical experts object to some of the details of the story, they say it draws attention to issues worthy of public discussion. The role of employers in determining healthcare coverage, the importance of understanding your insurance policy, and perhaps most important, the huge disparities in our current healthcare system. Strictly as a depiction of transplant medicine, the story is far-fetched, experts say. For one thing, most children whose families are in financial need would qualify for state or federal funds to help pay for a heart transplant operation, said Larry Levitt, a vice president of the Kaiser Family Foundation. There are also private funding groups across the nation, and many hospitals have staff trained to help families tap those resources, says Ann, a spokeswoman for United Network. Another issue highlighted in the movie is a type of insurance that places caps on medical benefits. The policy that John Q has through his employer sets a $20,000 maximum cap on benefits, meaning that any medical expenses above that amount are not paid. But health benefits consultants say that employers rarely stick their workers with a capped policy without including some provision of catastrophe. A cap of $20,000 would be very low for an employer plan. Levitt says. More commonly, we see caps of 200,000 or $500,000. Many people fall through the cracks. 38 million Americans have no health insurance, and many are working adults who couldn't afford an organ transplant. Some doctors believe that John Q could strike a chord with audiences because it illustrates some of the inadequacy of the U.S. health system. There's a huge public concern about coverage, about how much healthcare costs, and here's a man fighting for his son's life. I think it's gonna hit a very big audience. And HMOs, which come in for a share of criticism in the movie, apparently still make good villains. A current best-selling novel, The Oath by John Leslie, centers on an HMO executive who dies in a suspicious accident. And an upcoming made-for-television movie on Showtime is based on a true story of an executive at a health insurance company who blew the whistle on questionable business practices. Before John Q even premiered, the insurance industry launched an ad campaign framing the movie's message as a plea to cover the uninsured, not an attack on HMOs. In fact, John Q blasts the entire healthcare system, also shedding some light on the role that employers play in deciding which types of health plans their workers will choose from. As the economy remains weak and health costs rise sharply, employers already have begun shifting more costs to workers, insurers say. In such an environment, Kaiser's Levitt said, it's increasingly likely that employers will consider the type of policies that John Q has with lower benefit caps. It's a natural place to cut down on insurance costs, Levitt says. No one expects to need an organ transplant, of course, and a few of us can contemplate a medical catastrophe when we're healthy. So this is by CBC News. Inquest into fatal hospital shooting. A coroner's inquest began Tuesday into the 1999 fatal police shooting of a 26-year-old man at St. Michael's Hospital on New Year's Eve. Police shot Henry Masuka while he was holding what appeared to be a gun to a doctor's head. It turned out to be an unloaded pellet gun. Masuka had taken his infant son to the emergency room because he was suffering from an asthma attack. During testimony Tuesday morning, the coroner's lawyer told the jury Masuka had been told there were no pediatricians on duty and there would be a 45-minute wait before a doctor could see his son. Witnesses say Masuka went berserk and pulled out a gun wrapped in a towel. The coroner's lawyer said Masuka then put out the gun to a doctor, said demand his son to be seen immediately and forced the doctor to the floor. The police were called and 2 officers fired at Masuka, who was handcuffed and minutes later died. Let me know in the comments if you know why I'm looking like that. Okay. His son was not hurt during the incident and is living with his family. Ontario's Special Investigations Unit looked into the case and found the officer's response was legally justified because they did not know what kind of weapon Masuka was brandishing. But because Masuka died while in police custody, an inquest into his death is mandatory. Masuka's family says they were not satisfied with the outcome of the police investigation and hope new information will emerge during the inquest. We are looking for justice to be done, not just for us, but for Masuka, but for everybody, not just for us, for Masuka, but for everybody in the country, said John Masuka, Henry's father. The inquest is expected to take about 2 weeks, and 25 witnesses will be called. The coroner's jury will be asked to look at the response of the Toronto Police Emergency Task Force, the actions of hospital staff, and to make recommendations on how to avoid another such tragedy. Hospital staff and police will testify Tuesday afternoon. Masuka's family is suing the police, the hospital, and 9 other defendants, claiming general and punitive damages. I want to leave y'all with a clip. So, once again, Rest in peace to Henry Masuka. Condolences to his family, his son, and I think movies like this, John Q, is important um, to spark change, sparks a movement. So it's more than just a film. Go check it out. We're gonna leave off with some words from Denzel Washington, the interview by Screen Slam. Reminder, like, comment, subscribe, see more videos. Let me know what y'all want to tap into next. But stay tuned. It's Pride Month, and you're just gonna see more of me soon. So stay tuned.
So, congratulations. I heard this movie is not going to be shown at the American Insurance Association gathers to make it. They need to see it too. I mean, it's easy to point fingers, and I don't think there's one clear cut solution. I was just talking to a lady that says they have a national health in Australia. I assumed, or she assumed, works well. I know up in Canada they have their problems. In England they have their problems. So, maybe it's a combination of public and private. That's, government and private. That's the best answer. But I would hope, even in our system, that this type of situation couldn't happen where the hospital just sends them home. I mean, to die. I mean, I think this is sort of an extreme case because it's a movie. Yeah, not too far from some of the stuff that happens. I mean, the fact of the matter is, in the movie, we could have taken him to the county hospital. So I would assume that they would ship him there, not just send him home. But still, it's a movie. It's a movie, but it's a movie that deals with this kind of stuff. And right. Usually in this town, I think, an issue like this, usually has the same effect as a, anthrax letter or something. Yeah, right? Everybody runs away. Yeah, I just found out. I didn't know this, that the script was written back in '93. Yeah. So I would imagine that people kind of shied away from it for a long time, or the studios maybe shied away. The issue didn't play that much of a part in me taking the role because I didn't know, the ins and outs of the issues. Really, it started happening when I met Nick and found out what he went through because I'm going, well, you make a pretty good coin. I mean, how did that work? But, his daughter was in hospital so long, it just became more and more and more expensive and just banging his head up against the wall. He's very passionate about this issue and about trying to do something to change it. Well, the hook here, in a sense, is that you have this innocent child. He didn't hurt anybody, and he's gonna die without help. And you have these good, honest, hardworking, regular people who seem to be doing everything right. They go to the baseball game, take their kid to school, and go to church on Sunday. I mean, they do it all, and still they don't seem to be getting any satisfaction. They fall between the poor and the haves and the have-nots, which is probably the majority of Americans. So it's a tough situation to be in. Variety is the spice of life, as they say. I'm always looking to do something different. For many years, I sat in a chair like this, and people would say, "When are you going to play the bad guy? You're scared to play. He's always goody two shoes." I said, "All right, I got something for you." I don't know what they're saying now, but I think I did a pretty good bad guy.
Also, something I noticed in the film was when the lady was driving, they shot that. It gave us kind of a preview that she would probably be important to the film, and that was the heart that Mike received. But in that film where she crashes with the semi truck, they're both white, and y'all know how I feel about the colors when it comes to film. But I noticed that because of the meanings that I associate the colors with in film sometimes, I noticed that she something in her life she already accepted that she was like ready and that she was wearing the all white. She even had the bracelet, like she was traveling on a highway, so she was looking for something new, something different to explore. And the semi truck was also white. Um, intented, and for a while you didn't really see her face, which to me I think we did a good job of showing like this could be anybody. You know, you don't really have to see what she fully looks like or know her full story. Her and God kind of meeting each other in this final realm. Uh, and faith played a lot in this film. You know, as they were praying a lot, reading the Bible. It was about just being there for one another, community, healing the sick. And I chose this photo too before I go. I chose this photo specific because it just reminded me of like that photo from Malcolm X, but he had the guns looking out the window, the any means necessary. And I think the walkie-talkie represented the power and your is in your hands. Your voice is your power, and how media is another form to voice it, and that you should use your voice as a tool to make change. So go check this film out if you haven't already. Go rewatch it if you haven't seen it in a while. I recommend it. And go check out Straw as well. Me and my cousin Ashley from Happy Ball and Basketball Show, we're gonna be reviewing Straw. So go watch Straw if you haven't already and join the conversation with us when we drop it soon. But thank y'all for tuning in. Like, comment, subscribe. Peace.